Oh, that's why. Testing, testing. How about now, family? Can you hear me now? We'll get the sound to work. You should be able to hear me now. Um, can you hear me now? Good now. Perfect. Okay, thanks. Thanks. There we go. Sorry about that, family. I didn't even place myself in the studio. Um, welcome. It's been what, over 3 years since the last time I did a presentation on my channel. Welcome everybody. Chris Jackson, Desmond, Marva, Mayhem. Long time, bro. Email me, Mayhem. Here's my email. Um, I my iPhone went out on me, so lost contact with Discord. Rex, greetings there. See how Carla, good evening there. Sky, original Skywalker, Desmond, greetings. Welcome everybody there. So let's get real. Let's get to it here, family. I mean, I've been away 3 years. Been on the battlefield. Still on the battlefield. But I had to kind of put my gear down. I've been hearing a lot of disrespect out here towards my grandmother, my ancestors, many of your grandparents and great grandparents, and second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, going way back. We've been highly disrespected by many foreigners, mainly a lot of these foreigners from Africa. For some reason, within the last few years, got a little honorary and disrespectful. And you can only take so much, right? We can only take so much. So when you start poking at the bear's gonna come out, and bear's gonna bite you. So there's been this trend going around, and I did my best to try to ignore it and stay out of it. But this whole issue of us here in America with no culture, we don't know who we are. I mean, we're very humble, and it's actually to our detriment sometimes because we tend not to really talk, and we let people say certain things and they get away with things because of our humble nature, and we tend to not show off. We tend to let our game, as an expression in sports, let your game do the talking, right? But sometimes the disrespect gets so crazy, you're gonna have to kind of like, set the record straight, right? So, you know, I prefer the term colored Americans. I'm just going to use that. If any social construct I'm going to use now, it's going to be colored Americans because that social construct is one that was, remember the misapplication in 1924 under Plecker dealt with that. So just to separate ourselves, so when everyone's clear, I'm going to use colored Americans, and as we know, that's also on many of our grandparents' birth certificates, etc., and vital records and genealogical records, right? So there's this character, and all these people are actors, family. Frank Zanu and all these people are actors. They're paid to come out and say, emotionally charged statements to get us going, right? Um, and I want to start off because I've seen this question from this other particular individual. Let me share this. Let me share my screen here. Let me share my screen here. Share screen. Share screen. Entire screen. There we go. Okay. Share. Boom. Okay. And we're gonna have a part two to this, family. And then I excuse forgive me, but I didn't shave And so next time I'll kind of, you know, turn my camera on there and everyone can see my beautiful face. But it's not about seeing me. I'm not an actor. I'm not a personality. It's not about, I don't want you to divert your attention on my beautiful face. I'm going to show you the facts. Because, see, a lot of people love to talk in front of a camera, showing their face, but they don't show anything. And that's been our problem. We're listening to people with no receipts. So we need to stop focusing on individuals. This is not, you know, get us out of Hollywood, you know, celebrity worship paradigm there. But you know, we have to break out of that, family. We have to break out of that. So let's start off here. Let's start off right here. Okay. Because we're gonna set the record straight here. Okay. So I had to take a snapshot of it. Um, I wish I could remember the channel, but you know, I don't. But hopefully everyone can see that there. So this person asked a question here. What is your ethnicity? Please explain. Ethnicity, what are your social groups' shared cultural identity? What are your common traits like language, ancestry, traditions, religion, and history, distinguishing them from other groups? Okay, make a note of that, family. Ethnicity, cultural groups. I mean, it's almost as if we're some little minute little tribe who's being examined by university sociologists or anthropologists, right? But we're not that. Okay, so ethnicity, make a note of that, family. Shared cultural identity. Okay, now let's go to this individual who's kind of like our feature here, one of the features here, Mr. Zanu here. And you know, he appears on individuals' platforms, and he was on these youngsters' platform, but these kids don't have the intellectual experience or knowledge of real American history or themselves to even put Mr. Zanu in his place. So it wasn't even a fair fight, right? Um, so this, I'm going to show you what he said. I'm going to show you what he said. Right? Hold on one second. Just send this email off here. Let me get to this video here. So let's see here. Okay, here it is right here. Hold on. Let's get to this guy. I'm sure many of you may have seen this, family, but this guy was not properly put in this place, and he's going around, people allowing him to talk and disrespect. Okay. Okay, I can't even stand that. That's enough, family. But but we get it, okay? So he says we have no culture, and he asked, is twerking our culture? Okay. So now, first of all, Zanu, we agree with you. We agree that African Americans don't have culture. We agree with that. We have no problem with that because, first of all, we're not African Americans. African Americans, that's evil social construct Oh, it's only been around for 38 years. Okay, so we agree with that. So what they made from 1988, that African America, yeah, there's no culture because we didn't agree with that. That doesn't apply to us. Okay, so we understand that that was the attempt to replace us eventually with real Africans, and we're seeing that played out right now, 38 years later, when that evil term was created. But let's step back. So we have ethnicity and we have culture. So let now, you know how we do it, family. We're going to examine everything. So let's look at the etymology of the word culture. Let's look at the etymology of the word culture. Okay, let's do that. Hold on. Etymology. Let's go to the link. Let's go to the link here. Sorry, family, I'm not even looking at the chat or anything, so I'm just focused on presenting the receipts here. So I can't even see anybody there, but you know, well, let's just break this down. Culture. Okay. When we look at root, we always gonna go to the root meaning of the word, the etymon. Okay. Culture. Mid 15th century, the tilling of land after preparing the earth for crops. From Latin, cultura, a cultivating, agriculture. Figuratively, care, culture, and honoring. From past participle stem of colere, to tend, guard, to till, cultivate. The meaning, the cultivation or rearing of a crop, act of promoting growth in plants. So, in other words, family, culture, cultivate, deals with agriculture, farming, land ownership, land management, producing crops on your land. So, when we're talking about that there, obviously we have culture because we have land. Our ancestors own the land. And we're going to get in and break that down. So, culture is tilling of land, developing crops from land, cultivating, rearing of crops, planting. That's culture. The real root meaning of culture. Now let's go to ethnic. The other girl was asking about our ethnicity. Ethnicity. Okay. Ethnic character. 1953 from ethnic plus ity earlier meant paganism. Pagan, a heathen. Adopted to a genius or customs of a people, peculiar to a people, and among grammarians suited to the manners or language of foreigners. From ethnos, band of people living together, nation, people, tribe, caste. A heathen, a pagan, one who's not a Christian or Jew. Okay. In Septuagint, Goyim, Goy, Gentile, foreign nation, not worshiping the true God. Now, like I said, it's not doesn't apply to us. So to answer the chick's question, what's our ethnic? No, it doesn't apply to us. We deal with culture being the owners of the land, right? And we're going to get into that. And going back to my presentations, you know what I'm all about. I'm all about land ownership and reclaiming land. All right. So, but now we understand the root meanings of the word culture, dealing with the tiller of the land, the landowner, the farmer, the agriculturalist, the ancient farmer. And well, we're going to show and prove. We're not going to talk. We're going to show and prove. Okay. So, but before we do that, let's examine who we're dealing with. Okay. These Africans. Let's see what they have. I'm going to go directly to them. Okay. So I'm going to show this here clip here. Um, okay, right here. Let's watch this here. Here we go. A little video clip here. Here, just right from the horse's mouth. No thanks. Let's blow this up. I want to move it up a little bit, family. Hold on. To the hold on. Let's move it up. Okay, this is what we're gonna deal with. Okay, 500 million Africans without what family identity? Okay. Let's let them continue. 500 over 500 million people on the continent do not have a birth certificate. Did you hear that, family? Did you hear that? So they don't have a birth certificate. Their parents don't have a birth certificate. Their grandparents, their great grandparents, their second great grandparents, all the way down. I'm going to show later on one of my maternal ancestors, Stephen Presley, born in 1820. I have an image of him, a photograph of him, early 1900s, major landowner, which means he has culture. So we're dealing with people who don't even have a birth certificate, who can't even tell you the name, birthplace, and location of a third or fourth great grandparent because they don't have any records. Let's continue. Let's let them continue here. Let's stop right there, family. So they're talking about because they don't have any documents, no paperwork on who they are, who their ancestors are. So we know when they talking about digital ID, we know you're talking about Bill Gates, and we already know that Bill Gates had a contract with Kenya, was trying to initiate a contract with Kenya to implement his digital ID system, in which babies would be born with a chip planted inside of them. So we're dealing with people who are on a level who are without any records of of their family, no family records at all. So people like Bill Gates say, okay, well, I have the solution. digital ID. That's what now this is what we're dealing with. And these are the individuals that think they even deserve to have a conversation with us. All right, well, let's continue. Half a billion Africans without identity. I didn't say that. That's what they're saying. But they say we don't have an identity. We don't know who we are. Let's continue. They are what? Invisible beings. Let's continue. There we go. The magic word. What did he just say? We do not have what's called property rights. We just know the word culture just with tilling of the soil, farming, agriculture. They have no property rights. So you don't have property rights. You're not an agriculturalist. You're not a farmer. You're not a tiller of the soil. You have no what family culture, because culture produces. The farmer can produce substance for his family, his town, his county to survive and live and be healthy. So they can go up to other areas of human activities such as creating, such as, coming up with ideas and land patents that the world can benefit off of. You can only be in that position if you're comfortable, you're well fed, and you got the basic foundation of culture, which is managing and producing crops for the land so you can live and survive. Let's continue. Okay, so we got the point there, family. So culture is the landowner, the farmer, the agriculturalist, the agricultural scientist. That's culture. They don't even have any records, so we can't even. They don't. They're not even allowed or deserving to even sit in a chair to have a conversation with us because they have no identity. So let me show you something, Zanu, and to you other Africans. Hold on a second here. Hold on a second. I'm going to just start with myself as an example. Start myself as an example. Okay. Um, Now, public, Omani Bay's in public, but I didn't, I don't. It, those who are close to me know my family name. Know I'm a Grisette. Everyone knows that. So, um, let's see here. Let's start here because they don't know anything about this here, family. But we're just going to show, and we can't expect Frank, Zanu, and other Africans to know anything about real, true American history because they only get what they're told, and they're getting told a bunch of crap. So we can't expect them to know anything deep, right? But and we don't even have to. It's not even our responsibility to take them down a deep rabbit hole. But we're just going to show basic stuff such as records, birth records, genealogical records that we have going back over 500 years. In North America. We are the now family. Now remember, I'm in Japan. Been here for a while, and I'm still conducting my own little um, experiment. And it's not only Africans, family. Most people, other nations on the planet, don't have deep, rich genealogical records like we do. Hell, even here in Japan, they don't really have anything like that. Korea. I talked to my Korean friend. He can't produce any family records going back to his grandfather or great grandparents. Um, Dude from Iran, I know. Um, French guy, I know. So even in Europe, they can't. We have the deep records. So let me just show this here. And I understand, with the creation of that term African American by Jesse Jackson in 1988, and 38 years later, these Africans are getting honorary, right? So they come over here and think that we're them, we're some form of them, right? Um, okay, here, let's see, where is copy? Oh, I'm trying to look for my copy of my birth certificate, family. Hold on 1 second here. 1 second here. I got an image of my birth certificate to show an African what a birth certificate looks like. And this is how and why, and when you have these conversations, you know, if what is that's the first thing you ask an African, okay, who produce some records. Let's go record by record. Let's go ancestors. Let's here are my records. Produce your records. If they can't do that, if they can't complete that, pass that test, then there's no conversation to be had. There's no conversation to be had. So we don't need to. Let me see here. What the hell is it? Hold on a sec, family. It's somewhere. It's up in here somewhere. It's in here somewhere. I'm getting it to it here. Getting it to it here. 1 second. Birth notary. I'm gonna get to it, family. Hold on. Be patient here. Little patient here. Birth certificate. Notary. Notary. Okay. 100%. Oh, well, here's while I'm looking for that, I'm going to show you. Let's just show this here. This is my grandfather's marriage certificate. Let's see. This is my grandfather Testing, testing. I don't know what happened there. Can you hear me now? Let me know if everyone can hear me there. Can you hear me now? Yes. Okay. Yes. Okay. Wow. Sorry about that, family. For some reason, the mic. What was the last thing everyone heard? I'll go back. What was the last thing everyone heard? Did you hear the video? At least, did you hear the video there? Okay. So let me continue what I was saying here. Um, make sure I'm sharing my screen. I am sharing my screen, right? Okay. Yep. I am sharing my screen. So let's go back. Wow. Thanks for letting me know that, Janine. Appreciate you there. I must have accidentally hit the mute button there. Let's go back to what I was saying here. Now, let's see. Where was I? Okay. Right. So I believe I was here. Right. Okay. So we're showing this here, right? Um, okay. So we're showing my ancestors' final affidavit there. Uh, so let's see. Where were we here? Okay, I showed that. You guys seen that? It's my great grandfather's marriage record, right? So now let's um, let's give some further examples of people in history, right? Let's do that. And here's a work here by everyone heard of Carter G. Woodson, right? And but his most impressive, important work was dealt with genealogy. And he did two deals there, but one here is the head Negro heads of families in the United States in 1830, where he went from every state from A to Z and listed all these people. It's 1830. So another thing, family, we get these people on television talking about the 14th Amendment and want you to in 1868. And then they say, oh yeah, the birthright citizenship was for children. They said children of slaves, but when you go to the actual documents, it's children of Indians, and those are the Indians who decided to leave out of their jurisdiction into another jurisdiction, right? But don't just listen to these people on camera talking about you, because you are your own individual with your own family name and paternal and maternal ancestors who are different from mine, different from the next person. So we have to stop thinking this is some all monolithic group and we're all the same. So you get to know who your ancestors are, right? Because here in this particular work by Carter G. Woodson, 1830, there's thousands upon thousands of names of many could be your family name members. So you definitely need this in your library, family, because it goes from Alabama all the way to each state with all these names. And these could be many of your ancestors during this time in 1830. This is another tool for your genealogy to crack through a lot of these walls, right? Because these individuals in here in 1830 are adults. So they would have been born in the late 1700s or early 1800s, right? So this is a valuable work here that you need here. And all these people, all these names you can find on census records as well, which means the only American citizens could be citizens listed on the census records. So this notion of the 14th Amendment applying to this all monolithic group is a bunch of sorcery. Know who you are individually, right? So right. So this here work here. Look that up. Carter G. Woodson. After I finish my presentation, you can email me, and I'll send anyone the link who wants it. Right. So that's important there to show that. And also, I'm going to show this here for people as well. Now, I did this. I introduced this to the family over 6 years ago. The Solomon Sir Jones footage from 1924 to 1928, where he went around with the camera, filming everywhere in Indian territory, what's called Oklahoma, Texas, Illinois, Chicago, New Orleans, Tennessee. He went international to London, Paris, Marseille. He went to Egypt. He went to Palestine in the 1920s before it was Israel, and got all that footage. So there are 29 different films, 29 different short documentaries that everyone needs for the library. And it shows you the position many of you were in during this time, over 100 years ago. Everyone was thriving. And then, of course, I'm not going to, if anyone wants the link, I'll send you the link, but you can type it in, Solomon Sir Jones, and then you'll have the footage for yourself. And you can watch all this. I'm not going to show it because I did it thousands of times, but I just want you to know that the idea of you suffering through what they call slavery and then Jim Crow is sorcery, family, to mentally bring you down. It's a bunch of crap. Okay? So, of course, also in the footage, you have the first true oil barons in America, the Ragsdale families, the Davis families, with thousands of acres, oil wells, oil fields. That's where it came out of, Indian Territory. So you'll be able to see all that here. So, but people like Frank Zanu, they can't show us any 1920 video footage of how their people were living in the 1920s. They can't show you that because they weren't at that level. See, so when you poke the bear and you're talking amongst youngsters who don't even know who they are. And he got away with those statements, family. The interview we just showed with the girl he's talking to, she's not even mainland North American. So she couldn't even put him in his place there because she doesn't have the information. Right? So we got that Solomon Sir Jones footage. Now, let me tell you a story about this real quick, family. This here was hidden for years. Right? He's born 1869 in Georgia, and I did his genealogy. He's also come from landowners there in Georgia, and it was the film was lost, and then it ended up being auctioned off in New York, and then it came into the public, and I was blessed with it about 7 years ago, and I introduced it on A1's channel, right? And a lot of people promoted it and put it on their channels, but you don't they don't know who we are, and that's expected, family, because we don't control our narrative. The media and the education, they're getting all that false information, and but you're going to be exposed to some of our greatness today. We don't need to tell them every deep thing. No, it's not our responsibility. We just but when the disrespect gets so disrespectful, we're going to have to kind of like tap at them a little bit there, right? But now let's move on to this here, and this will be the monster here, family. So let me show you how the sorcery is and how they basically, because people like Frank, they're going to depend on the mainstream narrative, right? I'll have a part two where I'm going to destroy that mainstream narrative. But they let me show you something. Just type this in real quick. Watch this. Uh, coffee. Okay. All right. So look at this here. So now look at this. So here's an example of the sorcery, how they try to turn us into Africans. So when we do just a simple type in of Paul Cuffey, what does it say here? Born free into a multicultural family on Cuttyhunk Island, Massachusetts, Cuffey became a successful merchant and sea captain. His mother, Ruth Moses, was a Wampanoag from Harwich, Cape Cod, and his father, an Ashanti, captured as a child in West Africa. You see this? This is, it goes on and on and on. They're going to slap that onto you, family. Now, we know that, first of all, they have no ship manifest, any of that. And we remember, family, if you have an African brought over during this time, that means they have language. They don't speak English. They don't speak English. And then they'll tell you, or they say his father. Okay, yeah, his father was captured, right? Which meant his father would have had his language. So you'd have vestiges of the so-called Ashanti culture there. Now remember, these people were one of the most wealthiest people on the planet during their time. Not only that, they were mariners. They had their own ships. So if there was any kind of African connection, the first thing they would have done was went back to their homeland, to their village, to bring their people back, so their people can get out of poverty and live like kings and queens. You would have had that exchange. Not only that, you would have right now, if Africans who are Ashanti know that they have true American ancestry in America in the 16, 1700s, they'd be non-deportable. Trump wouldn't be able to deport them. They say, wait a minute, Trump. No, bro. I got long lost family members here, dude. Your grandparents just got here in the 1900s. You can't deport me. I'm a descendant of the Cuffeys. And then they show the paperwork. But there's no African invoking that argument when they're approached by ICE. There's no people trying to these organization NGOs trying to create funding to help Africans find long lost family members in America, so they don't have to go through the jungles in South America illegally. They'd be looking for family members. And most importantly, if we were them, we'd have that physical trait with the receding hairline starting back in Texas. So you get a lot of these people talk about they're African, knock him out and take him to the barber and have that barber give him that African hairline, family, and see how he feels. That'll shut a lot of this stuff up. But now let's get into Paul Cuffey here. But now, first of all, his family name is not Cuffey. The family name is Slocum. And next time I'm going to show that Slocum name and that Slocum family, because I got records in the 1600s about them down in the Caribbean to salvage many of their ships in the 1680s. They were advanced divers, and the Slocum Wampanoag Slocum men went down there to salvage their ship down in the Caribbean. I got that whole story. That was in the 1680s. So Cuffey's not the family name; it's Slocum. So you'll notice a lot of this where they'll give you a name, but it's not actually the family name. It's not the full name of the individual. But he had a son, family, named Junior, Paul Slocum Jr. or Paul Cuffey Jr. And I did a bill a couple years ago, 2024, where I talked about the Compton Indians up in the Northeast. There's town called Compton. And I have all those, I've introduced all those records, court records, 1700s of all those melanated Indians up there. But now his son, also a mariner. Now remember, in Wampanoag tradition, all males had to be work on the ships in the sea. And they had a monopoly family. I'm going to get into this later. They had a monopoly on the most valuable resource on the planet. So before crude oil and natural gas, there was whale oil from sperm whales. That oil lit the streets, the light bulbs. It had many uses all around the world. They had an exclusive monopoly on it going back probably thousands of years. And they didn't lose control until like the mid 1800s. So his son wrote a journal of his travels, 30 years of travel. So let's just share. I'm going to share a little bit of that directly from him, his work. That this kind of stuff they hid from us, family. So here it is here. Life and Adventures of Paul Cuffey. This is Junior. What did he call himself? A Pequot Indian. Of course, the Pequot was all up under the Wampanoag jurisdiction. Pequot Indian. During 30 years spent at sea. He penned this in 1839. Okay? Life and Adventures of Paul Cuffey, a Pequot Indian. During 30 years spent at sea, traveling to foreign lands. Okay, so here, he says here, a descendant of an Indian family which formerly resided in the eastern part of Connecticut and constituted a part of that fierce and warlike tribe of Indians called Pequots, of whose exploits in the early wars of New England, the reader may become acquainted by perusing Trumbull's History of the Indian Wars. That's what he called himself. He didn't say Ashanti. He didn't say West African. Now remember, they had all the ships. Any kind of connection, he would have went back there to his village, and you would have had those Africans in the Northeast being citizens, having that connection. Trump's deporting West Africans right now. So show and prove, African, that you got ties to us in America by invoking this history if you're connected to it, so you can become non-deportable. Don't talk, show and prove. Everyone loves to talk, family. Now let's go here and read some of his work, because this is what they kept from us. Okay. Okay, so let me start. Let's start right here. At this port, we sold our load, after which my father, that's Paul Slocum Sr., or Paul Cuffey Sr., put me in a high school in Williams Alley, where I remained 2 years. This was an excellent school, taught by a friend Quaker, a very worthy man, whom I shall ever have cause to respect for his many acts of kindness towards me. Now, let me stop. Let me show you something, family. I'm going to show you the ships his father owned and built. I did this years ago. I'm just going to share with the family, because we got to get a correct perspective of this. But this is important. Now, mind you, culture first starts with the ground, with the land, where you have the agricultural brilliance and mastery of producing food to where you can remain in a settled area. You're not a nomad wandering like a hunter and gatherer. So you evolve from a hunter and gatherer into the farmer, to where you can stay in a settled location, have a community, because you mastered the art of farming and producing substance from the land up under your feet. That's culture. Once you reach that level, then humans are able to achieve great things, such as building structures, cities, ships, and then the things you produce from the ground or from, in this case, sperm whale oil, and you tapped into that resource and the value of it and how it can be used, then it becomes an important commodity that you can trade. Then, of course, you create these trade routes, and being these ancient trade routes on the seas. Now, remember, if the Wampanoag had a monopoly on that, that means they were able to protect it, which means they had a military. They were strong. Okay, so now let's look at this here. Because before we get into the journal, we got to understand, okay, ships. Because the narrative would have that you were just some lowly slave and you had no rights and no freedoms. You couldn't do anything. You couldn't read. You couldn't own land. You couldn't do anything. So we're going to expose the fantasy and show the reality. So ships built and owned by Paul Cuffey and now Michael Weiner. That was his partner, also brother-in-law. Matter of fact, let's do this. Back up even further so people can get this straight here. Because I have an article on him. The history of the Weiner Farm property in Westport, Massachusetts. Okay. So this is 2022. Here's a Weiner descendant. And the Weiners, Wampanoag. Here's a Weiner. And the article, The History of the Weiner Farm Property in Westport, Massachusetts. Okay. This article's, that's Robert, is 2022. Okay, the Weiner Farm on Drift Road in Westport is included on the Paul Cuffey Heritage Trail because it played an important role in Paul Cuffey's story. Okay, so Paul Cuffey purchased this property for his business partner and brother-in-law, Michael Weiner, and sister Mary Weiner in 1799. Currently, a new group of descendants is in the process of restoring the 46 remaining acres of the property and transforming it into a historical and educational site, emphasizing its Native American heritage as personified by Michael Weiner, a Wampanoag, and Mary Cuff Weiner, whose mother was a Wampanoag. Okay, so this is what we're dealing with here. So now let's go back. Now we remember, this is a descendant of the Weiners, and we go back to the ships owned by Paul Cuffey and Michael Weiner. So now we know we got a perspective of who we're dealing with and what these people look like. So 1778, 79, he built a small sailing ship. 1784, a 12-ton schooner. 1787, a 25-ton schooner. Cuffey and Weiner as owners. 1792, built the Mary, a 42-ton schooner, with Cuffey and Weiner as owners. 1795, they built the Ranger, 62-foot square stern schooner. 1801, built the Hero, 162-ton brig, owned by Isaac Corey Sr. and Cuffey, a quarter interest. 1806, the Alpha, 268-ton ship, 3/4 interest owned by Cuffey and his partner. So this is what we're dealing with. Now, what do you need to build a ship, family? What do you need? You need a shipyard, right? You know how big shipyards are? Not only that, you have to have the education to understand all of that stuff, which has to be centuries of knowledge passed down. So this is what we're dealing with. But they want you to believe that these are Ashanti West Africans. But yet they had all the ships, but they never went to Africa. And there's no written language or West African language connected to that part of the Northeastern America. Now let's get to the journal. Okay. Let's see here. Let me get to an interesting part here. Let's see here. Because he was actually down in the Caribbean, and he was held captive for over a year with those pirates. Sorry to say, a lot of those Jamaicans and those are just pirate descendants of pirates, family. But I want to get to this interesting story here. But anyone wants this, I'll send it to you there. But you have to have this here. Um, he went everywhere: Hawaii, Peru, um, the Indonesia area. He went to trading the whale oil. Let's see here. Okay, yeah, yeah. So check this out here, right here. We were again put in irons and otherwise harshly treated, and had given up all hope of ever seeing our native shores. When one day, soon after this, Captain Joseph Merrihew from Wilmington in Delaware was brought on board the prison ship with 9 other prisoners. This man knew and inquired of me how long I had been a prisoner. I told him, and he promised to help me to obtain my freedom, which promise he faithfully kept. He was a Freemason and a kind hearted man, and to his influence I owed my early release from the miseries of imprisonment, which I had borne for nearly a year. This humane man, procured not only my release, but a large number more of my poor countrymen. This was a happy change to men who were sighting for freedom. We hoisted sail sometime in the month of August, 1814, and steered away for Baltimore. Our ship was called the William Penn, Captain Turner. And about 18 days after leaving Port Royal, that's down there in the Caribbean, we made Cape Henry on the Virginia coast, where we found a British blockading fleet at anchor, the commander of which ordered us to Philadelphia, to which port we steered away. But we had the bad luck to strike upon the shores of Burnock during a thick fog that came on that afternoon. But after 3 hours hard labor, we got off and went on our voyage, and soon made the Delaware Bay, which was also blockaded. Here we were again refused the privilege of going on into port, but were ordered to Boston, and were told by the British officers to get out to sea within 3 hours, or they would fire into us. At this time, we were almost out of provisions and water. Of this, we made the tyrant officers acquainted, but they utterly refused either to furnish us with these necessaries or permit us to enter Philadelphia. So we were again compelled to go to sea with one day's provisions and water, and steered away for Boston. The next day, about 10 o'clock a.m., we made Great Egg Harbor. The crew then told the captain that he must go ashore, for they would not stay aboard and starve. Right? So he was going through a lot of these issues, family, when he was in prison down in the Caribbean. But he got it. Got it. He made it out of there. Got back to the East Coast. Um, but I want to get to one more thing here, where he's actually trading the whale oil here. Um, Oh yeah, look at this here. We stayed at New Orleans 3 weeks. We took in a load of cotton and again sailed for Providence, Rhode Island, where we arrived after a passage of 30 days. So we now know from New Orleans to Providence, Rhode Island, it takes a month. Here we discharged our cargo and took in a set of ballast. And after staying about 20 days, we again set sail for Richmond in Virginia. After flour, we took in 1,700 barrels of flour at the latter place, and after staying about 3 weeks again, set sail for Boston, where we arrived after a sail of 15 days. Here we were paid off and discharged, after which I went home to New Bedford, my parents at this time being dead. That's his Paul Cuffey Sr. Here I stayed until the next year, to next June 1817, where I shipped aboard the Alexander Barclay, Captain Joseph Dunbar, bound to Baltimore for cotton. Okay, so these mariners, these Wampanoag Indian men, all of them were always at sea, traveling, doing business, and that was their deal for thousands of years here, right? Um, let's see here. Oh yeah, right here, Cape Horn. He actually circumnavigated around the Cape of South Africa as well. Um, he gets into that. Oh, the Galapagos Islands he went to, right? That's famous for Charles Darwin. So this is the true view window of what many of your ancestors were doing in the 17, 16, 17, 1800s family that you've been denied this information, right? Um, let's see here. Padua, Peru. Oh, look at this here, right? So here he went. This travels to Peru. Um, and let's see what's else here. Little clothing, shipboard, Newport Islands, tone bones, potatoes. Oh yeah, Peru, right here. So listen to this here. After the death of my friend, I stayed about a week and left that place and went to Pata. Pata is a seaport town in Peru, which is a seaport town. Here I stayed but 1 month before I again shipped on board a whaler called the Mechanic of Newport, Rhode Island. After leaving this port, we went down to Tumbas, where we took in potatoes, squashes, onions, and watermelons. We then steered away for the offshore ground, which is about 3,000 miles west of the coast of Peru. Here we took two whales, after which we steered away west until we came to the Rapport shore. The people were almost white, you mean their complexion, but very savage in their appearance and went almost naked. What little clothing they had was made of grass woven to a species of cloth. This they tied around their waists. It reached down before nearly to the knees. These people have never permitted the missionaries to live among them, but they worship idols made of stone. They raise potatoes and oranges of the vegetable kind and of the animal hogs. Of these latter, we purchased a hog that would weigh 2 bundle pounds for one whale tooth. What they do with the teeth, I do not know. This the natives brought to us by swimming to the ship. From the last mentioned islands, we steered away west by north, about 2,000 miles further, when we reached an island called Riotir, one of a group called the Society Islands. So there's some interesting stuff with him there in Peru, what the people looked like, and he traded whale teeth to them, right? Um, so yeah, this is very interesting here. And then he ends it here, um, where he says here, yeah, 1838, and Paul Cuffey. It says Stockbridge, New York, March 18th, 1839 is when he finished penning this here work, 1839. But the image you get about our position during this time is sorcery. It's like a multiverse where we're in a different jurisdiction and these people created a whole new story about us and our ancestors, but it has nothing to do with reality, family. Nothing to do with reality. Okay? So and I want to show something else real quick to end this, just to show you how they hijack and co-opt and twist stories. Um, let's see here. Let me get into this here. Uh, so there was the remember the channel what was it straight up. He hasn't done any presentations in years. Remember he had a deal on Robert E. Lee, right, and some of his brothers, right, and of course when you see an image of Robert E. Lee, they it's a false image. You got him looking like he looks like Bill Clinton, but he looked nothing like that. You know, and the brother showed a congressional record describing um, General Robert E. Lee as being dark complected, right? So we know what Robert E. Lee looked like, and then of course his father, Harry Lightfoot Lee, and that whole Lee family. Now, my mother's friend Janice, she's a direct descendant of Robert E. Lee. Um, and I just wanted now, when Straight Eight did the presentation back a few years ago, he showed a little, he clipped off, he trimmed off of the source where he was reading from, and just gave us the sentence there, right? But I actually found the source, and this comes from an 1868 newspaper article, um, and this was here, and I'll send this to anyone who wants it. It's the Weekly Freedmen's Press, Saturday morning edition, July 18th, 1868, right? So, death of General Robert E. Lee's half brother. Okay, see that? So this is the where Straight Eight praises to him, honors to him. But this is where he got the article from. So it's from this 1868 article, and it's about the death of General Robert E. Lee's half brother. Okay, so Mr. Alfred Lee, the well-known and highly respected colored man, who so followed the business and grain merchant, died at Georgetown, D.C., on the 20th of June at 62 years old, right? It was no ordinary assemblage, for not only were the culture and religious influence and respectability of the colored people present. Let's repeat that. Not only the culture, the religious influence, and respectability of the colored people present, but the best and highest of white people as well. Private worth of official dignity, eminent, paying willing tribute by their presence to the character and standing of him who had passed to another life. Okay, now let me show you. Let's get to this part right here. Listen to this. Look at this, family. By eminent business ability, he so overcame the obstacle to wealth placed in the path of a colored man as to leave some $300,000 to his family and friends. Let's put that into perspective, family. Let's do this. Okay? We need to convert that. How much is $300,000? That's 1868, right? How much is that in 2026? Right? So let's find that out. Hold on. We're going to convert that. We're going to make that conversion. We're going to make that conversion here. $300,000. Let's see here, $300,000. Okay, so let's convert. Hold on. Let's do this. I already did the conversion. It's basically like but I'm gonna do it together with the family. How much? $800,000. 1868. Okay, the inflation calculator. Here it is right here. Okay. Okay. Right here, family. Start year 1868, end year 2026, $300,000. Basically $7 million. $7 million. So we think we're free. We think we had it better than our people back in those days, family. You see this the foolishness we've been under because we've been cut off from our what? Culture, our land. They still had their land. They still had their culture. He was in the Lee family, of course. Now, so um, General Robert E. Lee. Hold up, let me show this here. Let's show this here. He had another brother, not just Alfred Lee. There's Daniel Lee, and I have to give General Robert E. Lee credit because he looked after his other brother Daniel. And let's read the article right here. Here it is, General Lee's half brother, colored. Now, this is not about Alfred, this is the other brother, Daniel, right? It says here, to my memory of colored relative of General Lee. It says here, before the war of the rebellion, Robert E. Lee arranged with Daniel McNeil, a very wealthy man, whose plantation was in the heart of famous South Branch Valley, 6 miles north of Moorefield, West Virginia, to take care of his half brother, Daniel Lee, as long as he lived. Daniel McNeil put him on top of a mountain 6 miles west of the manor house, where everything necessary was his to get and use as long as he lived. So I guess, Daniel Lee felt on hard times, but his brother General Robert E. Lee looked out for him and had his buddy McNeil let him stay on a certain section of his land, which he did. So honors to Robert E. Lee for that, right? Looking after his brother there. But this is the information you never get, family, right? Because we know what these people do. They hijack, steal names, steal our ancestors, claim them, change to how they physically look. We all know that. Africans don't. And it's not their business to know because they're just not connected, right? So, but we're just gonna give them a little bit exposure to some stuff, right? And so let's continue here. So we got Alfred Lee and Daniel Lee. Now here's an 1840 census with Alfred Lee's Robert Lee's brother listed on here, right? 1840. It has nothing to do with what they call the birthright citizenship of the 1860s, right? So Alfred Lee, right there, 1840 census listed, right there, 1840. What birthright citizenship making him a citizen? He's been a citizen. We family. You got to remember, you have the old states, which you talk about the mother, Virginia. You got the new states that was created out of Virginia, like Kentucky, Tennessee, etc., the Northwest Territory, Ohio, etc. Then you have the United States, which is just a baby, which is just basically certain American nations coming together to form said United States. We go way back before that. So you don't have no records on us about this new United States. Of course not. Because our ancestors go way back before that. So, but this is the kind of information that's not going to be out. And these people on cameras are told to say certain things, and it's all falsehoods. So your ancestor, if they're from Virginia, Maryland, they're rich records. So get to studying your own maternal and paternal ancestral records, family. That's all you have to do, right? And we can open it up here. Just wanted to show a little bit of that there. See, we have rich records that go way back. We know Africans have no records at all. none, zero. So they're in a position where they're talking to people like Bill Gates about digital ID to inject chips into their newborn babies. This is the position they're at. Not only, hold on a second, family. Instead of them worried about us, this is my advice to you Africans, what you should be doing. Right? Hold on. I saved this video. This is disgusting, but this is the position they're in, and this is what they should be worried about, right? Um, hold on. I seen this video what the Chinese are doing to their babies out there in Africa. China is they got this, look at this here, family. This is disgusting. This is my advice to Africans. You need to be worried about this. How in hell could you let Chinese people do this and treat you guys like this? This is insanity. Is This is huge on Chinese social media in China, where they go to Africa and they create content by abusing African children, family. This is crazy. There is no way in hell some Chinese go to any of our neighborhoods. First of all, we know what would happen. But this is where you should be spending your energy to make sure this kind of stuff would never happen in your village. Let's fast forward. We're the adults here to make sure that none of this happens, family. Or were they paid off and they're basically indirectly supporting it and allowing it. See, so my advice, you guys stay in your own business. You got a lot of work to do. Don't be poking the bear. Um, but just keep our names out of your mouths, basically. That's all. And everything will be okay. Because you got a lot of work to do back home. A lot of it. So we can let's see here, open it up. Hold up. To the questions here if want to come up. Anyone wants to come up on the channel there. Oh, no sound? Oh wow. Can I hear the abuse videos? No sound. Oh, hold on. Okay, hold on. Wait a minute. No sound. You couldn't hear the abuse videos. Okay, hold on a second here. Let's see. The abuse videos. You couldn't hear that. Can you hear it now, family? Can you hear now? No sound. In and out. Okay. All right. Well, um, here's the video, family. So Chinese social influencers create content by abusing these Africans, especially children, for content. So and they become very, I guess it's they go viral in China with this kind of nonsense. But this is what Africans need to be worried about. Um, don't focus on us now, okay? Don't focus on us here with culture, and we have identity because we have our family records. You guys don't. You have a lot of work to do. So fix your own nation, and please do something about Chinese people disrespecting your babies out there, family, because that will never happen in America. It will never happen in America. I know you guys are depending upon China to create your build your infrastructure, all this stuff, and we are totally different. So fix your own homeland there, please. Um, can you let's see, clear. So I'm open to questions now. Anyone can come up, share the referral link, share the link. I gotta share the link, right? How do I do that? New streaming. How do I share the link? That part. Yep. How do I share the link to let someone up on here, family? I'm so old fashioned here. I forgot how this stuff works. But if anyone has any questions, you could type it in. Um, closed caption works. Yeah, type it in there, and we'll have another part here next week, and I'll figure out the technology here, family. Sorry about that. It's been over copy and pasting into chat. Where do I copy it from, Janine? Where is it at? Is it this here? Wait a minute. Is this it? Wait a minute. Maybe this is it. Is that it? Is that it? Maybe? Media people. Okay, yeah. So anyway, I dropped the link there in the chat. Okay, I'll call you, Marva. I'll call you on that. Um, well, anyone, yeah, I dropped the link in the chat there, so anyone can come up there if you have any. Want to talk a little bit before we end it tonight. Okay, so that is it. That's the link. Okay. Um, copy invite link. Link copy. Okay, so now I can drop the link again. Here's the link. Boom. Yeah, that's the link there. Okay, no one wants to come up, huh? Okay. Okay, well, we'll go ahead. I know it's late tonight. We'll go ahead and end it there, family. And I have another part to this here because I want to continue on stuff because I actually want to show this. This is what I want to show next time. We can get into this here because hold on, let me show this real quick. A preview of what we're going to get into next time here. Um, I'm going to show, for example, Shakespeare's story Macbeth. Well, this is a real Macbeth. So this is Hugh Macbeth Senior, who born in South Carolina, 1884, moved to Los Angeles, um, and he was because a lot of these, like he was doing a lot of great work protecting, in particular Japanese, mainly Japanese in Los Angeles. From at that time, they were subject to deportations, and so he would protect them. And he was a lawyer, went to Harvard Law School, lawyer. Had his. Let me show you. Let me show this to you as well. I got a copy of his business card. He had two law firms down in Los Angeles. This is one of them. Macbeth is a female, and she was the first Japanese American, any American to graduate from law school and pass the California bar in the early 1920s. But she couldn't get a job anywhere. So, like the cultured person he is, a farmer, the nurturer, he gave her a job, allowed her to work at his law firm. Okay, so there was a huge connection. I'm from Los Angeles with us with Japanese. Because Japanese started coming over in late 1800s into 1900s, and um, and this is way before there were any Mexicans. Very few Mexicans at the time. So if you look at our old school yearbooks from the 20s all the way up to the 60s, junior high and high school yearbooks, like my father, my uncle, they all went to school. It wasn't if they had any Mexicans, it was Japanese they were going to children they were going to school with at that time, right? So there's a connection, but they had to depend on us. And then many of our land, the land that we owned, our ancestors owned, will allow many of the Japanese, some Chinese as well, families to stay on their land in their apartment buildings to protect them from being deported and allow them to work for our ancestors' businesses. See, they misrepresented it in the movie Sinners. See, the movie Sinners, they made it seem like the Chinese running the businesses. No, remember, they were subject to what was called the Exclusionary Act. They couldn't own land, they couldn't do any damn thing. So they came to us. And so they tend to forget about what we did for them. Well, we're going to get into that because they're going to have to put some respect on our names. They had to come to us for refuge. Okay? So we got to get the story straight. You didn't operate our business, no businesses for us. We had our own businesses. We were the landowners. So we're going to get into that as well. And then we're going to get into this as well. Check this out real quick. Here's a quick preview. Where is that at? Where is that at here? Okay, hold on 1 second here. Okay, here it is. Here it's right in here. Check this out, family. We're going to get into this here because they keep talking about. Oh, let's see. It is contract slavery. Okay, check this out. Basically, employment. It's a contract. It's employment. He got paid. Everyone got paid. Not only did you get paid, family, but check this out. Here is an agreement with freedmen. Okay, this is a contract here. This agreement made and entered to this fourth day of April, AD 18. That look like that's 1860. 60. Let's see. Wait a minute. Well, we'll confirm that day later. Okay, but in the 1860s, by and between Charles, looks like that's a stack of the parish. Hold on. Hold up. What happened here? Hold up. Hold on, man. Let's get back to that again. Wait a minute. Again here. Pull it up here. Okay, here it is again. It's signed. Freedmen of the same place, parties there here too are the second part, right? It's a contract. And that for the purpose of cultivating the plantation known as the Bell Alliance Plantation in the parish and state of aforesaid during the year commencing the first day of February, AD 1865. Okay. That the said Charles, what is that, Rock? I'm not sure about that name, but we'll confirm that later. For consideration and the conditions, stipulations herein after mentioned, agrees to pay to the said laborers the rates of monthly wages agreed upon and as specified opposite their respective names hereto. One half such wages to be punctually paid. Now they kind of crossed over the main, but it said quarterly May, August, November, and the remainder to be paid at the termination of the contract year. Okay? But now check this out. Let's look at what they're getting. Let's look at the perks of this agreement here, family. Let's look at the perks here. Um, okay, right here, right here, right here. Okay, so wages to be paid at the end of the year, the said laborer shall be entitled to and agree to accept the share of the net profits of carrying on the plantation during the period aforesaid, respectfully set opposite their names below. Hold on, damn it, hold on. Okay. I wanted to wait a minute. How do we? Something I wanted to show real quick before we get into the amounts. Hold on 1 second here. For every month, I want to show this real quick, family. Good condition. Okay, yeah, right here. So check this out here. Okay. Okay, so he agrees to furnish the said laborers free of charge, good and sufficient quarters, and medical attendance to see that the premises thus furnished are kept in a good sanitary condition to allot. Now listen to this. To allot from the lands of said plantation for garden purposes to each family 1 acre of land. 1 acre of land they get in addition to medical, salary, family. Wait a minute. 1 acre of land. Now let's put that into perspective, right? Okay. Now, a 5,000 square foot house is a pretty nice sized house. Anybody would love to have a 5,000 square foot house, right? Family, 1 acre equates to 43,000 square feet. 1 acre. Not 5,000 square feet, 43,000 square feet. 1 acre. So part of this deal, this so-called slave contract deal, is each family gets 1 acre of ground, land. Such allotment to include a reasonable use of tools and animals, to exact only 10 hours work per day. And if any labor in excess of 10 hours per day is rendered, the same as to pay as extra labor. Time and a half, family. Time and a half. Okay? So, but you get an acre of land. So now let's break it down even further, because many of these people who own the land and the plantation are our ancestors. But we'll get into that deeply in the next presentation. But now, and what you call the laborers would be children, other extended family members like your brothers, your sister's children, your nephews and nieces. Now, if you had 600-acre plantation family, who would you be giving these contracts to? Who would you give an acre to? Would you give an acre to an illegal alien or some foreigner who you don't know a contract? Where you're going to give an acre to that foreigner, knowing that foreigner is going to be close to your daughter or your niece? You going to do that, family? Would you sleep comfortably at night? No. So who are you giving the contracts to? Who are you going to give an acre of land to? Who are you going to allow to live on the land that you sleep with your wife and family every night? What type of people will be allowed or worthy or trustworthy enough to where you're going to let them give an acre because you got 600. Let's say you have 30 employees. So that's 30 acres. You got to allot to each family one apiece, right? So who are you going to get a contract to? Foreigners you don't know, strangers who come from distant lands who don't have what you have, don't have culture like you do. You think you're going to sleep at night? No. Because what will happen? Oh, another thing about this whole we got their name crap. No, these are our family names. You will never give a stranger your family name because of what, family? Because if you give your name to that foreigner, they knock you off. They get your assets because you gave them your name. No one does that. And you're definitely not going to give someone your name and an acre of land and sleep at night. We know what's going on right now with the Democrats. Allowed all these foreigners to come over. They get these social security cards. They coming after. They change their names so they can try to blend in and not be subject to deportation. So think of it 2026. You're gonna allow an illegal alien to come into your house. You're gonna let them. You're gonna provide them a room to do some work, pay them, and then give them your name. Come on, family. We have to break the spell. We have to break the spell. So it's a lot of stuff we're going to get into for part two here. Okay. Um, any questions or comments or anything? Hopefully everyone heard that. Oh, Christopher, welcome, Christopher. Long time no talk, bro. Good to hear from you. So yes, of course, it's going to be family members, right? So, and we're going to get into that. Who are the landowners, and show all of that, family, and the how they basically disconnected us from that, and that's why they had to turn us into Africans, to disconnect us from our ancestral lands to where they can claim it. Okay, so we're going to end it there tonight. And anyone who wants to come up, oh, Janine is here. Oh, hold on, add to stage. Janine's up here. There we go. Okay, you
Hey,
got to
can you hear
unmute
me?
yourself, Janine. Let's see. Unmute
Can you?
yourself. Yep, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, just wanted to say peace to the family. And um, I didn't know there was something I saw this week. I don't know if you've seen it. I had thought about it when you were talking about the situation with the Africans. Is that I'm
Right.
sure everybody in the chat has probably seen, but we definitely have to kind of continue to raise noise about that situation that's going on in Chicago, where there's an organizational group that's going around Chicago taking their DNA, collecting their DNA, and supposedly they're also going to Ghana to collect DNA. And now they're trying to do this little fake, you know, trying to act like they trying to connect. But I just happened to see a post about it. And I don't know if anybody in the chat has seen it. It was going around like on some TikTok videos. I was trying to record it, but then I ended up getting a phone call or something, so I wasn't able to record it. But I'm gonna try to go back and record it. But I thought that was pretty interesting because this is another danger thing of them specifically targeting the Chicagoans, and they're trying to link this DNA with these Africans. And they may even start switching it all around. You know what I mean? So this is something, and it's being led by a, a, a so-called Black organization. I forgot what it was called, but I'm gonna try to get more information because we definitely have to keep an eye out on that whole thing because this is just getting out of control. And supposedly their agenda
Yeah,
is
yeah.
to but it's one thing about how they talk, but I'm really concerned about them coming into the community, and now they giving out all these DNAs in a specific area to try to collect all this DNA specifically from this area and trying to go to Africa and so-called collect this DNA, and now trying to merge these two groups together. Very dangerous time giving up all this stuff, so we got to definitely continue to spread the word for people to stop doing that stupid stuff. And see, it's not even
Yep,
just like the
exactly.
people who come on the ancestry to do it or whatever. They're going straight in the hood. You know what I'm saying? And now they're gonna be offering
Oh
this
wow.
and that, $50, $100 to do a DNA kit. That's how desperate they are.
Oh wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I,
Oh,
I saved the
oh
video. I just got to record it so I can send it to you. But when you were talking about that earlier, I was like, yeah, that's another alarm we got to really pay attention to.
right, right. Okay. Yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean, a lot of people here, all about their land there, and they want to get information on how they can do that. Um, and that's what it's all about here going into 2026.
That's right.
Let me see here. Yeah, so yeah, 2026 family. You want to talk about people keep talking about reparations? What's real reparations is reclaiming ancestral lands. That's reparations. That's being repaired. So and it's not this we stuff. It's not some monolithic group. It's your paternal and maternal ancestors. Go seek out and get the land records that's in their names because you are an heir of that. And that's what no one can take away. But they've been trying to keep you distracted, focused on Africa and all that crap. There's no inheritance over there for you in Africa. There's no inheritance outside of your ancestral lands in America. So better stop wasting time and falling for these distractions and yeah, but we cannot let these people disrespect our grandparents, and our grandmothers. Now I know things have changed. You see, back, I'm 59 years old, so my grandmother who died in 2007, and then there's a lot of us. We all know that this is a war on us to basically bring us to extinction and replace us with real Africans. We all know that's what's going on. And they've been doing a damn good job at that. We have to admit it. We have to look ourselves in the mirror, and we can't be under delusion or stubborn, and we got to fix a problem, you have to admit that there's a problem, right? So, but remember, family, back in our grandparents' day, we had the family gatherings during certain times of the year where our grandmother would sit there and cook for everybody. And a lot of those people are no longer around. Were born in the 19 teens and the 1920s. They're no longer around. And then a lot of our younger females don't pass the tradition on as cooking. Many young people don't cook today. Many of them don't even have own homes today. Where back in our grandmother's day, everyone they own their homes where we all gather together at the house and celebrate a few times a year. A lot of that's not happening now because a lot of these current people don't have homes, and many of us would sell our grandparents' homes and for money, and that's no longer prevalent like it was back in the day. So we need to be aware of that and try to acquire land now so we can keep those traditions going on because they're trying to end all of that, family. They're trying to end all of that. So um, yeah, that's the we have to get back to that because that is our culture. Remember, culture is cultivating. It's agriculture. It's land ownership and land producing. That's culture. Okay, so no one has that more in abundance than us. And let me share this real quick. Since we talked about the show, let me highlight that real quick. I have this. this thing here, 1894. Let's see here. Um, let's see here. It was the. Hold on, real quick. Let me share this. Let me show and prove real quick here. Um, 1894. 1894. 1894. 1894. Okay, right here. So now I got into this before years ago, but I'm just gonna touch bases and share this real quick here. So this was a there's a convention held. Okay, right here. So Louisiana, private lands. Let's get to that part real quick. Okay, so United States public land, the homestead, 160 acres. You know, this talk about the land patents here, right? And make final proof, 80 acres, right? It talks about the state public lands. Exemptions from seizure. Our laws exempt certain articles of clothing, bedding, etc. from seizure in favor of lessee or tenant. The law also exempts certain other articles from seizure for debt. The law provides for certain privileges in favor of widows and orphans. State homesteads. Now, white and blacks. Now, check this out. Let's see here. Now, this is Louisiana, right? The blacks are mostly located in the alluvial lands. Alluvial land is the best land, family. Look up alluvial lands. And as a class, I believe they are better satisfied. They're better and have more property of their own than any people of similar education and intelligence in the world. The relations between them and their employees who own the land is friendly. So, and we already know that when we look at our ancestors, especially the patented lands with the land patents, and who are the heirs of these land patents, we know who they are. And if you don't know, then you better figure it out because you'll be left way behind. But land ownership, cultivation equals culture, right? But I'm going to get into this here as well. Let's check this out. Now, this was a convention held March 21st, 22nd, and 23rd, 1893, about the immigration problem or being open to immigration. So it was the Governor Foster of Louisiana. He got together with all the other governors. Now, check this out here. Let's see here. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, the most casual observer of passing events cannot fail to recognize the fact that most, if not all, of the southern states are today devoting their energies to the development of their material interests and industrial capabilities. All the states are earnestly and diligently moving on the line as a means of accomplishing this. And let me blow it up so everyone can see it. Okay, let me back out a little bit here. Hold on. Here. As a means of accomplishing this end, the consensus of enlightened opinion points to the investment of foreign capital and the introduction of what? White immigrants. 1893, family. So obviously in 1893, there weren't enough of them. They need to open up immigration, allow them to come in. Let's continue. For years, the tide of immigration has drifted westward, running in parallel lines from east to west. As a result of this movement, a vast and magnificent empire has grown up from the plains of the west, and a brave, patriotic, and intelligent population rivaling in intelligence, wealth, and refinement of the people of any country, contributing to make this portion of the Union noted for its far-reaching power and influence. So basically, what he's saying, the West, the East, and the West benefited from opening up to white immigrants coming in for their labor. Okay. Now listen to this. Prior to the war, the people of the South, what we're talking about the rebellion, what they call the Civil War, on account of the institution of slavery, cared little or nothing for white settlers in any numbers. They were never there. I just showed you an example of Robert E. Lee, who they got the world to believe was white, but it wasn't. So prior to the war, they cared little or nothing for white settlers in any numbers. Immediately after the war, the causes which tended to check the flow of white immigration to the South were many and manifest. Even after the war, they had barriers where they didn't allow a huge number of them immigrating into the southern states. The bitterness and prejudice of civil strife were deep and fresh in the mind of the people. Sectional feeling and partisan hatred ran high, while gloom and desolation and almost despair hung like an April over the prospects of the southern people, who bankrupt in fortune and broken in hopes. This is after the rebellion. Okay, so now after all of that, they talk about a solution, and the solution is to open up to bringing in white immigrants into the southern states. And this convention is in 1893, family. 1893. And we already know what happened in North Carolina in 1898 when they got their freedoms. We already know about all of that. So everything you think you know, you've been caught up in a multiverse. You're in a different universe where the entire story of people in that particular universe has nothing to do with you, because we're not in our ancestral jurisdiction. It's different characters, same names, but they made the people look different, and they tricked you mentally. So of course we can't expect Africans to know this kind of stuff. They can only go on the false histories that they're told. No fault of theirs, but at least have the wherewithal to tell, okay, wait a minute, they've been doing bad. We know how the Chinese are treating you guys. So of course the Chinese social media influencers who's making all this content off of you guys, and of course we know that that's not true. How the Chinese depict you guys to their other countrymen in China. So we in America, we would never repeat lies coming from Chinese about Africans. We will never do that. So you hear conversation with so-called blacks in British blacks versus what they call black Americans. What's going on here? Most of your British blacks parents are from Africa. We know you have no identity because you have no family records. We are not African American. There's no African American on any of our family records. It's a new term that's not even 38 years old. But of course, you guys don't know that. But you have to learn here. And speaking of that African American term, at least Professor Smith tried to do something about it in 1994. He tried to do something about it. Let me share this with the family real quick. He brought a lawsuit against Jesse Jackson and Ramona Edelin for that evil term. So he found Avis J. Smith. So, brother, he's a professor, scientist. He got many technical patents. He actually teaches. He still may be teaching at SUNY University, City University in New York. Look him up. So this was filed September 15, 1994. United States District Court for the District of Columbia. Right? Now, he did all this by himself, pro se. He had the right intent. He just didn't lack the legal knowledge to frame it. Right? So it says here, upon consideration of the motion to squash service of the complaint of defendant Edelin and the plaintiff's opposition thereto, the defendant Edelin's motion is hereby granted. So they filed a motion to dismiss. So, and defendant Jesse Jackson has moved to dismiss the complaint herein, and the plaintiff has opposed his motion. Defendant, which is Jesse Jackson, correctly points out that the plaintiff, Smith, has not alleged any duty on the part of Jesse Jackson to the plaintiff. Plaintiff has alleged no facts that would support a claim against either Jesse Jackson or Ramona or under the Civil Rights Act of 1964 or the Administrative Procedural Act, nor has plaintiff alleged any other legal theory that would warrant recovery by plaintiff against Jesse Jackson. No legal duty appears to be owed to plaintiff by either defendant, nor has any legal duty been breached by either defendant. Accordingly, the complaint fails to state a claim upon which relief can be granted. So what does that mean? So Smith sued Jesse Jackson for creating that evil construct African American, right? It says, in this country where freedom of speech is prized, general use of the term African American by defendants cannot be deemed to violate any legally cognizable right of plaintiff. So basically, just because Jackson is associated with the term, the social construct, you don't have to agree to it. It's basically what the court is saying. You don't have to agree to have that apply to you. So, and there's no duty for Jesse Jackson to you individually. He's not forced that upon you. So if you call yourself that, that's on you. So that's basically the situation. But he sued using the Civil Rights Act and the Administrative Procedure Act. He just did not frame his claim correctly. Right? But the court basically said it's not, it's you don't have to give it any life by agreeing to that. This is what the court basically said there. Here was his cover sheet here. This was his cover sheet. A. Smith, defendants Ramona H. Edelin and Reverend Jesse Jackson there. And check this out. Let me zoom in right here. He said here, the problem of so-called black and or African American leaders renaming black people against their will. That's what he wrote in his civil cover sheet, 1994. Bless his heart. At least he had the right mindset to do something, to try to do something about it, right? 6 years later, 1980 is 1994. So give him his props for that, okay? But of course, Africans don't know anything about this. We don't expect them to. They're feeling honorary that we're that their African is connected, right? So, but we all know better than that, right? So, but yeah, we will get into this more next time there, family there. Now we will maybe next week have another one. Good night.